Hi, thank you for being here instead of another stage. So I know we are in the design stage. I'm going to be a little bit focused on the output, automation, and programming. This might be a little bit out of the subject, but I think it matters because it's at the end of the process. And actually, it's like it's interesting because the previous presentation was more focused in the beginning of the process, and this is more focused on the end of the process. First, let me tell you where I work in and where I'm representing. Our office is in LA. We are from Portugal. We are an architectural office with 40 years of experience in international projects. We are like 36 people by now, and we are mainly focused in housing and hotels, and that is why automation is very important for us, because that's how we can be very efficient and make the project more profitable, which is the ultimate goal of everyone. A little bit about me. So I'm an architect by training. I also work as an architect, so I always approach subjects with the point of view of an architect and how it can solve the architectural problem. And I'm a BIM manager at our office, and I'm also a Revit trainer and a BIM consultant. To understand a little bit our issues, it's important to understand our Portuguese context, because it's not like the North European countries. And I don't know if you know, but in Portugal, the use of BIM is very low and the knowledge is limited, mainly because it is not a mandatory thing, at least until this year, because now this is changing a little bit. Public projects are going to be mandatory to be delivered in BIM, but that wasn't the case, so it limited the knowledge of BIM in Portugal. Another thing that is important for you to know is that in Portugal, the bill of quantities is also under the responsibility of architects, what does not happen in most of countries. So we have that responsibility to give to our clients a bill of quantities to be compared with the contractor bill of quantities. So that is an output that we need to assure, and it's something that we are going to talk a little bit further. So this is my range of study. My focus is to try to automate our processes and try to overcome the limitations of the softwares that we use to get the output that we need, given our office standards and our country context. It's also important to tell you a little bit about how we see the BIM context and the BIM world, because I know we talk a lot about open BIM and okay, it's better. We talk a lot about BIM, and NLA is also involved with Building Smart, which is focused on open BIM, but let's be honest, it doesn't work quite well, and that's not the reality of our job. We need to work with specific softwares, and we should be focused in interoperability. And another thing that I like to mention, because actually we were talking about this earlier, is that outsourcing BIM is not real BIM. I mean, BIM is about a process. So when you are doing a project, you should be focused on BIM from the beginning. So with this, because we are working BIM from the beginning till the end, we have daily issues that we need to address that might be really small, like, for example, translating room names, or to take out all of the BIM quantities. They are all problems that we need to solve to be efficient. It might seem a little bit stupid to be worried about translating rooms, but it can take a lot of time if you have a big project and if you are working with international projects. I'm forgetting to change the slides, but don't mind. Then another very important thing, everyone is very worried about LOD, but the important thing is not about LOD, it's about the level of information needed. It seems sometimes that companies are like in a challenge to say, oh, I do LOD 300, I do LOD 400. Yeah, but is that necessary? Maybe it's not. Maybe you need some stuff to be modeled in 300. Maybe you need some stuff to be modeled at 100 only. So you need to be smart about this and not waste time on doing stupid things. All the images that you are viewing are our projects. Okay. Then the very big question is if BIM software can be efficient and if it can be profitable. Yes, it can, but of course that's your first BIM project is not to be efficient and it's not to be profitable because you need to make your standards, you need to define methods, procedures, you need to train people. So it is not going to be profitable. For example, back at our company, we are using BIM more seriously from the last 7 years, and now we are being efficient. Right now we are working with smaller teams and getting more job done in less time, so it's a process. Then another big question when we are talking about interoperability and open BIM. I really believe we need to think about interoperability, and I also think that when you have too many softwares, you will end up losing data and information, and you will lose time. So the most you can do with one software, the best for you. And then because it's also easier to train your team if you are more focused in one software than in a lot of softwares. So the reality is that, for example, we use Revit. Revit is not able to give everything we want, especially because, for example, Revit is more developed for the American I forgot the word, market. So there are a lot of tools that we need for example, the Portuguese context that Revit is not able to, and it is not going to be able to because they are not thinking about Portugal. It's just a dot in the map, so it's not going to happen. So let's just get over it and try to solve it by our own. So that might mean that you need to work your procedures, have your strategies, and maybe do your own tools. And that's why we're talking about automation. But to get to automation, we are not only talking about programming. We need to think about a lot of things. We need to think about human resources, because you will need to have a team that is prepared and on the right mindset to do this. You will need hardware, because sometimes people forget about hardware. They are only thinking about software. But it doesn't matter if you have the right software if you do not have the right hardware. And this is very challenging, because sometimes companies think that buying another computer or a better piece of hardware is wasting money, but it's not. That's where you're going to be efficient and profitable, because if someone in your team is wasting 10 minutes to open a file or to do some task, that's not going to be efficient. So you need to be very focused on hardware. And then, of course, in software. But I'm not going to focus on that now. Then procedures. Procedures are very important, and sometimes people are very reluctant about it. When someone gets to the office, they have a manual with almost 200 pages, and they think, oh my God, this is a nightmare. But it's important, because we need to be speaking in the same language. And you need to be tough and make them comply with it. Then we can talk about automation. And automation, let me just drink water. So when you're talking about automation, we are not only talking about programming. You can do automation in very different ways. But you've got to start somewhere. So before thinking about programming, you can think about other ways of being more efficient. The first step, I would say, would be groups. And these might seem very simple, but the truth is there are a lot of people working without groups. So that's the first step. Then you need to try to define default documents. You need to have your share parameters, define your title blocks. If you can have a library of default details, that would be great, because you can import them to your project and get a lot of time with it. You should have your libraries. We have a lot of libraries organized by subject. For example, kitchen library, bathroom libraries, entire bathrooms already modeled, complying to the Portuguese legislation. So that is very important for you to try to get that work done. It takes a lot of time, it takes years, but that's where you're going to gain a lot of time. Then we have some images before talking about programming. These are a few images of our standards, not only regarding coding, but also how you should control some families, how you should organize the files, how you should do the dimensioning of the families, what parameters you should have in your model, what you need to fill to get information and to get scripts running. For example, here we have a script, Dynamo script for stairs quantities, because all of you know that stairs are a problem in Revit, so we made a script to take all of the quantities of the stairs, but for that to happen, you need to have your shared parameters already imported in your file. So we have a guide explaining everything our team members need to do to make that happen. So, about programming, what you need to start programming. You need software, but that's not a problem because most of the software to program is free. But then you will need something that is not free, which is people. And not everyone is able to get into programming. Maybe you will need to hire someone to do it, which is going to be more expensive, or maybe you can train someone in your team to do it. At our case, I went to study programming, and I went to do some courses about not only Dynamo, but then Python, and now C#. And with the help of our IT manager, we are working in our own tools. Because, of course, with programming, you will be more efficient, and it will get more profitable. Regarding process, so first, before start programming, you need to detect your problem. But then you need to make sure that there is no traditional way of solving it, because sometimes people say, okay, I want to program, I'm going to do this script, but maybe in the market there's already something done, so there's no point on repeating work. So if you can use something that it's already done, great. But about that, please make sure when you start using an add-in from Autodesk App Store that it will be continued, because sometimes it is not, and then you are depending your procedures on something that it will not exist next year. Then you need to choose the tool you are going to use. Is it something very specific, very small that you can solve with Dynamo? Is it something that you need to use Python, C#? And then you need to sketch your solution. That is something that I always say to my team members, sketch your solution. Even if it is a family, you need to sketch it first before doing a family. It will save you lots of time, because we will prevent the errors before starting to start doing the job. Then write your code. And very important, test it on a copied file. That's a major mistake most of people do. Do not try code in an original file. Make a copy, because you'll probably ruin the file. And don't wait for the solution to be perfect, because probably it will not be perfect. If it's working, use it, take advantage of it, and then you can perfect it and eventually share it with more people, which is our goal. So you can use the most used languages and tools for Revit is Dynamo for visual programming, which wasn't not enough for us because it's not stable enough for the size of our files. So we got into Python with PyRevit, and we developed our own toolbar at the office, and now we are changing for C# and trying to share our plugins in Autodesk App Store. So after the languages, you need to choose the software that you are going to use to code, and also be very familiar with Revit API, application interface, because you're not going to be able to program for Revit without having some knowledge about it. So you need to study it, and there are lots of documentation available in web. So I'm at the end of my time, but I just want to let you our toolbar. We have a lot of scripts that are very small, for example, to translate the names of the rooms, but then we have some bigger scripts, for example, finish schedules. It does not make sense to be modeling all the finishes and then to be filling the room schedule with the finishes. So we have a script that detects what is modeled and writes back into the room where it belongs. Stairs quantifications, I already talked to you about that. Bill of quantities, as I told you, in Portugal, bill of quantities is something that architects need to worry about. And now we have a script that enables us to click in a button and to have an Excel spreadsheet with already formatted and with all the totals taken out from Revit without having to add any other information. So I leave you with this QR code where you can find more of our articles and our work. And I hope I haven't been too boring, and sorry for the delay.